I never imagined the last place I would feel unsafe would be the house I helped build. The funeral flowers were still fresh when my son told me to leave. His father hadn't even been taken away yet. The living room smelled like lilies and grief. Chairs were still lined against the wall from relatives who had come to pay their respects. My husband's casket sat just a few steps away, closed, quiet, final. That was when my son looked at me and said, "This isn't your home anymore." I laughed at first, not because it was funny, because my mind refused to understand. Then his hand came across my face, not a shove, not a push, a slap, sharp, loud, final. The sound echoed in the room, and for a moment, everything went silent. Even the murmuring relatives froze. My cheek burned, but that wasn't what hurt most. What hurt was the certainty in his voice. Behind him stood his wife, arms folded, lips pressed into something close to satisfaction. She didn't step forward. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She had already decided this house was hers. I had raised this boy. I remembered his small hand wrapped around my finger, the day he learned to walk, the nights I sat on the edge of his bed after nightmares, the mornings I packed lunches while half asleep from working late shifts. I had skipped meals so he could have new shoes, worked overtime so he could go to college, defended him when teachers were wrong and neighbors were cruel. And now he was ordering me out of my own life. I didn't cry. Shock does that to you. It builds a wall so thick even grief can't get through. I looked at him, really looked at him. He couldn't meet my eyes. I turned away without a word. My suitcase was still by the hallway from the hospital. I hadn't even unpacked it yet. My husband's final stay had ended only days earlier. I pulled the suitcase toward the door. My footsteps were quiet on the hardwood floors. My husband and I had laid ourselves nearly 4 decades ago. I didn't take much. Not the photo albums, not the handmade quilt, not the ceramic angel my mother gave me. But I did take something else, something they didn't realize mattered. I took the mortgage. Outside, the Alaska air hit my face harder than the slap had. Snowflakes drifted down slowly, landing on my black coat. I let them stay. I walked past the driveway, past the car my husband and I had paid off together, past the roses we planted on our anniversary, past the wind chimes that used to sing when my son came home from school. No one followed me. At the gas station down the road, I sat on a cold bench and called a taxi. A teenage clerk came outside and asked if I was okay. I told him I was fine. I wasn't. That night, the motel room smelled like disinfectant and loneliness. The heater rattled, but it worked. The bed was clean. I stared at the ceiling for hours, not replaying the slap, replaying the words. This isn't your home anymore. That house wasn't just walls. It was decades of sacrifice. Prayer whispered into kitchens. Arguments settled and forgiven. A lifetime lived carefully, quietly. What my son didn't know, what he never asked, was that my name wasn't just on family photos. It was on the paperwork. When we bought that house, the bank wouldn't approve my husband alone. His business had failed, credit bruised. But I had steady income, clean records. My name opened the door. So my name went on the deed. We paid every month, even when money was tight, even when illness came, even when we had to choose between comfort and responsibility. I never reminded anyone of that. I didn't want power. I wanted peace. But my husband knew. Before he died, he pressed an envelope into my hands. Don't open it unless you have to, he said. And don't tell our son about it unless he hurts you. Inside was protection. A second will. A clause written for a moment he hoped would never come. If he ever forces you out, my husband had said, everything goes back to you. The morning after the slap, I called the bank. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain my pain. I simply gave my name. They confirmed it. Co-owner, co-borrower. I stopped the payments. By morning, the locks worked. But the bank didn't. I left town quietly. I had spent my whole life staying quiet for the sake of others. This time, my silence carried consequences. Weeks later, my son called, crying, confused, asking why the house was at risk. I listened. Then I reminded him what he had said. This isn't your home anymore. And I let the line go dead. Eventually, the house was sold. Not to punish, not for revenge, but to protect women like me. I bought a small cabin by a lake in Alaska. Nothing fancy, just solid walls, quiet mornings, and space to breathe. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. No footsteps behind doors. No tension at the table. No shrinking myself to keep peace. I forgave my son. But forgiveness does not mean returning to harm. I didn't keep the house. I kept my dignity. I kept my voice. And now I tell my story so other women know this. Silence is not weakness. Age is not invisibility. And being kind does not mean being powerless. Sometimes the strongest thing a grandmother can do is finally speak.